Hi everyone, welcome to the Co-Founders Insight, and I'm the host of today. My name is Joseph, and first let me introduce our honorable guest speaker, Mr. Kong, the co-founder of the Hong Kong Coalition, as well as the member of CPPCC. And welcome, Mr. Kong. Today we are going to talk about the outlook of Hong Kong financial market. First, what's the impact on Hong Kong financial market in terms of the outbreak of COVID-19?
Now, during the COVID outbreak period, I would say that Hong Kong's financial market has shown considerable resilience.
Yes.
Now, it is also reflected in our stock market.
True.
If we look back at the Hang Seng Index performance, when COVID started back in January 2020, the Hong Kong Hang Seng Index was around 29,000.
Yes.
It dropped to around 22,000 in March 2020, but it has bounced back.
Yes.
Now it is also around 29,000 point, almost exactly as it was during the start of the COVID period. And a lot of people also fear that there would be capital outflow. But the statistics shows that during the past 12 months, Hong Kong has recorded net capital inflow of around $50 billion.
Okay.
You know how big it is. It is this amount is more or less the amount of tax collection in Hong Kong in a year.
For the whole year.
For the whole year. So which is pretty remarkable.
Okay, cool. So that's the impact on Hong Kong. But what's the impact on China due to the outbreak of COVID-19?
We all know that China has done exceptionally well.
True.
It has outperformed almost all of its major competitors.
Yes.
Last January, in 2020, January 2020, a lot of people fear that China's economy would have a big problem. Its GDP dropped by over 6% in the first quarter of 2020.
Yes.
But it bounced back strongly and recorded a net 2.3% growth for the whole 2020. If we look at the other major economies in the world, most of them have recorded negative GDP growth.
Most of them, I would say, yeah.
More than 3%, some even 10% negative growth. So our positive growth of 2.3% is really remarkable.
Yes. I think the data, the numbers can show everything, right? I would say China is not only, but a few countries that can still have a positive GDP growth. And I also want to ask, what's the implication? We can see a huge surplus in China, right? The trading surplus, I mean.
Now, yes, last year, China has trade surplus of around $500 billion, which is more than the previous year. So I think during this COVID period, a lot of companies overseas faced a lot of challenges for their supply chain.
Yes.
So they turned to China to buy goods from us. And because of that, we've got this huge surplus. And normally, when there's a huge trade surplus, people would need to buy RMB to pay for the goods. So there would be pressure on RMB to appreciate. But in China, that hasn't happened. Interestingly, I looked at the currency RMB value against US dollar for the past 10 years.
Yes.
10 years ago, in 2011, the value of RMB against US dollar was $1 to about 6.5.
6.5, okay. Yeah.
Almost exactly as the current value.
Very stable.
Yes,
Very stable.
And during the 10-year period, it has gone up and down, but within a very narrow 10% up and down, plus or minus $6.5 range. So that stability is very important to our economy. It it gives the factories, the exporters, very stable environment.
Yes.
So it helps the export. It also helps the stability of the economy as a whole.
Yes.
And how could that happen? With such
how could that happen?
huge surplus. I think on the one hand we've got huge trade surplus, but on the other hand, China has also been investing abroad.
Yes.
In quite big scale. And a lot of those investments is also done via Hong Kong. So we talk about One Belt, One Road. We know that China has been invested heavily.
Yes.
And they come to Hong Kong, to set up holding companies for their overseas investment. They use the banks in Hong Kong to finance the projects.
Yes.
Use the professionals in Hong Kong for on accounting services, legal services, etc. So I think and also Hong Kong itself is also a very attractive place for mainlanders to invest.
Yes.
Both in our stock market and also in our property market. So that means that we have exports attracting a lot of overseas capital, but also via Hong Kong we also have a channel for some of these surplus to go back to the rest of the world, and this creates a very stable environment in terms of our currency value.
Yeah.
Now, I would also like to share with you a story. What happened to Japan? In back about 30 odd years ago. Japan has also been exporting very successfully.
Have a great economy.
Exactly.
Back to the days.
But at around 1985,
1980, yeah.
around that time, there was a meeting in New York.
Yes.
And after that meeting, an agreement was signed among various countries, including Japan and US. It's called the Plaza Accord. Under that agreement, the Japanese or the various economic power kind of agree that the value of yen should strengthen.
Okay.
And within a year, the value of yen against US dollar almost doubled. And because of that, it weakened the competitiveness, of the Japanese goods.
Yes.
But because of the strengthen in yen, the Japanese government they think that they couldn't raise the interest rate. Otherwise, it would the value of yen would further go up.
Yes.
So Japan, from that point onward, have a very low interest rate environment, and that creates other problems. Economic bubble. The asset price inflates, property prices goes up, stock market goes up, and then after a few years, the bubble burst.
Yes.
And the Japanese economy has suffered, for the past few decades.
Yes.
I think the strengthening of the yen back in the middle in the 1980s was one of the roots of that problem.
Okay.
So China has done really well to maintain a very stable currency, and Hong Kong has also played an important role to make that happen.
Yeah, that's important. I think Mr. Kong mentioned a very important perspective. You said we are strong and we are confident on controlling the stability on the currency, right? And also, the one thing I think very important you mentioned, that Hong Kong has a very important role in this process. So we know there is a 14 5-year plan now, and what's the Hong Kong's role on this great plan? What could be our character? What do you think?
Now, in the 5-year plan, Hong Kong has various roles.
Yes.
I can name a few. We have a role as international financial center, offshore RMB hub, trading hub. We have asset management center, risk management center,
A lot of centers.
Legal center, arbitration center,
Yes.
all these centers. But if you think about what I've just mentioned, all these centers helps those One Belt, One Road initiatives. We need the financial center to help finance the projects. We need Hong Kong to help monitor the risk, manage the assets. In case of legal disputes, be the arbitration point, intellectual property hubs. So these are all mentioned in the 14th five-year plan. So I think if we read the five-year plan carefully, we should feel quite honored and feel comfortable that Hong Kong has a very important role to play to help our fellow countrymen.
And no one can replace. Yes.
Exactly. This is not something which another Chinese city can do overnight.
Yes.
But on the other hand, even though we've got all these opportunities, we need to learn fast, to be able to play that role well.
Yes.
So this is important because we've got the opportunity, but we need to grab the opportunity and do it well. I think Hong Kong should educate our population, especially our younger generation, to make sure that they know that these are the opportunities for Hong Kong. So it's also the role that they can play to excel in their own career. We need to understand this one country, two system, and and how we can sort of take advantage of one country, two system to give us more opportunities to excel. On the other hand, we also have a huge market, a 1.4 billion market that Hong Kong can easily tap into.
Yes.
So a lot of people are saying that Shenzhen may overtake Hong Kong one day. Okay. Yes, of course, Shenzhen is doing exceptionally well, but if we can take advantage of all these opportunities laid out in this 14th five-year plan and do it well, I think our economic growth can be sort of much faster than what we have done in the past few years.
Okay, so thank you for Mr. Kong's your sharing. And we all know that economics is always our strength, our advantage in Hong Kong. And I think you have mentioned a lot of the opportunities, our advantage in the future. So I think that's a very great insight, not only for the young people, almost everyone in Hong Kong. We have a lot of opportunities. So I hope to explore more on other topics with you next time. And thank you very much for today's sharing, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.